Forbes India Leadership Awards 2023.
Our next panel discussion is all about inclusion, whether it is gender equality, LGBTQIA plus inclusivity, or giving equal opportunities and a platform to succeed to specially abled persons. To moderate the discussion, I would like to invite Varsha Meghani, Principal Correspondent, Forbes India, and also please put your hands together for our panelists, Padma Shri Avani Lekhara, Tokyo 2020 gold medalist, Paralympic champion, and Khel Ratna awardee. We also have Meena Ganesh, Chairperson and co-founder Portea Medical, and Sushant Divgikar, aka Rani KoHENur, singer, actor, performer, and social activist.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, it's a frustrating state of affairs, where we're moving forward and backward at the same time. Companies have made real progress in pushing diversity and inclusion initiatives further up their agendas. And marginalized communities do have more of a voice today than they did in the past. But external events like COVID have set us back and delayed progress on a number of fronts. The global gender gap, for example, has been extended by a full generation. And LGBTQIA plus rights are under intense pressure in many places. And the disability gap is still wide. So what can we do to really build back in a truly inclusive way? With me to discuss this topic is this eminent panel. We have Avani Lekhara, ace rifle shooter. We have Sushant Divgikar and Meena Ganesh. Thank you so much for joining us. Avani, I'd like to start with you. COVID was a difficult time for most sports people. They couldn't go out and train and practice. But for disabled sports people, it was even more difficult because the inequalities that they faced got exacerbated. But you found a way to overcome it. Tell us how.
Good evening, everyone. COVID was a time where we all suffered and we were all shocked, and life was kind of came into a halt for every one of us, especially for people with disabilities. Me personally, being a spinal cord injury paraplegic person, it was very difficult for me to go out, and because I was more prone to the viruses, and my parents were very serious, and they were like, okay, let's just stop it, you just stay at home. And then for like one whole month, we were just thinking what to do, how to go ahead. I've already gotten the quota for Tokyo Paralympics 2020, and it also got postponed. So I was a little, heartbroken because it was my first Paralympic Games. Then my physiotherapist, she used to come to my house daily for the exercises for my legs, for my upper body strength. My parents helped me setting up a digital target setup at my home, and I was practically shooting from my kitchen hallway to the master bedroom. And it was so difficult because something or the other, the TV was on, something is cooking in the background, everyone is saying something. It was very hard to concentrate, but yeah, it helped me a lot. I had, online training sessions with my coach, my mental coach especially, because at a time where you are homebound, a lot of anxiety kicks in, and you start to think that, what will I do ahead, and how will I go? But the training that I did in the lockdown at my home, basically training more on my basics, more on my process, helped me winning a medal in the Paralympics. And it was difficult for other people like para-athletes because not everyone is, privileged. Like my parents, especially, they were financially capable of getting me a target, but other para-athletes, especially shooting being a expensive game, it was hard for them to get it. So they suffered a lot. Like swimmers, they couldn't go and swim. But the COVID, it helped me a lot.
Right. And Sushant, coming to you, what was COVID like for the LGBTQIA plus community? Were there setbacks to the progress we had made up to that point? And where do we stand today?
First of all, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for having me on this wonderful panel. It's for me, it's a very big, it's a big deal for someone like me to be here. Only because I say this only because we're excluded right from the get-go, you know, and very subconsciously when we say welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Someone who's transgender and doesn't identify in the binaries is automatically not welcomed. So I would like to welcome myself once again and people like me and say welcome everyone to this wonderful event. And COVID was, as she said, it was so tough for so many people. And as she said, I would like to reiterate, we come from privilege. I have wonderful parents that see me slay everywhere I go in every country I represent my country at. But you know, there are a lot of kids that don't have the support from their families and happen to be from marginalized communities when it comes to sexuality and gender. And a lot of these people had to stop taking their transition medicines, medications, and that caused a lot of gender dysphoria and therefore mental health issues. There were a lot of issues that, you know, stemmed from not being able to transition to the other gender and other sex. So for me, it was, in a way, it gave me time, because that's when I came out to my parents as a transgender person, is because I got so much time to reflect. And, you know, in the industry we are in is, you know, and as a live performer, you're literally touring and traveling everywhere and doing TV. And then, of course, shooting hours is crazy. But, and, you know, when we used to complain about the fact that we don't get quality time, I got so much quality time that I could find the biggest quality in me, you know, during the lockdown. But for a lot of other people, it wasn't the same situation. For example, I can speak with you in any language you choose, at least 9, you know, Indian and then English, and of course. But there are so many people who are, you know, probably from regional backgrounds and, you know, smaller towns that can't even articulate what their needs are. And which is what kind of made me then also really take my activism forward. And that's why I think that, you know, COVID gave me perspective, but it took a lot from a lot of my sisters. And I think that, you know, when we're here in this room together, I just want everybody to realize that each and every one of us sitting here in, you know, this in fancy hotel, I do believe that it is our duty, as, you know, the former panelists also mentioned, that, you know, when we come from privilege, it should be our duty to help and uplift other people. And which is why I'm launching my own organization, which will, I've till date educated about 650 transgender kids and rehabilitated them from sex work. But I wish the number grows, because as they said that, you know, you don't have to have too much money, but I wish I had too much money so that I could have all my sisters rehabilitated from the streets. So while going home, you didn't have to see them on the street. You could probably see them here. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Meena, coming to you, you know, you sit on the boards of various companies. Are businesses looking at diversity and inclusion as a key part of business strategy? And how are they going about doing so?
Sure. Thank you for that, and thank you for inviting me here today, and to be part of a panel of other very, very powerful people over here. I'm delighted to be here. What I'd like to say is that there is a clear movement in this direction, no doubt, because businesses realize that their businesses need to reflect the community that they serve. And if that community has diversity, then you need to have this built inside your organizations. That said, it has been a very tedious progress. And there are 4 or 5 important things, I think, that are important to drive this progress. First and foremost, there has to be desire from the leadership that this is important. We want to make this happen, and we will measure this in the boardrooms and ensure that we are held up to a certain standard. It has been easier, perhaps, to talk about gender diversity from the women perspective. But when you start to look at gender in a more broader sense, first and foremost, you have to break that whole mindset that people have, that what does it mean? How do I refer to them? How do I talk to them? How do I deal with them? All of these are such powerful roadblocks in our minds that those have to be changed. So leadership, and then leading the change. And one of the boards that I sit on is Axis Bank, and I'm very proud to see that we have a person who's a gender fluid, identifying as multiple genders person who's leading the whole DEI initiative in the bank, which itself is a very, very important sign internally and externally. Then the third thing is that on the back of that, you need to create the right culture, training, making people aware, making this a norm, normalizing the whole conversation of gender, of persons with varying ability, and also, over time, I think we need to look at age, cultural differences, all of that has to be normalized. What we need to understand, people need to understand that diversity is not a nod in favor of somebody and we're doing something for them. It is really something which is essential for the business to be relevant in the eyes of the customers that they serve. Also, diversity brings about a much richer discussion, richer strategic impact. In fact, getting people who are disruptors in an organization is always a good thing, and we all dislike that. All of us, and leaders, all of us, we want to have something which is collegial. We all like to talk to each other, but we need disruptors of different kinds. So that's the third piece on culture. And the fourth very important thing is you need to measure. What gets measured is what will get implemented. And these measures need to come all the way to the top to be seen. It's not just something that the local HR needs to deliver. It is something that the board needs to look at, and the board needs to get behind it saying this is important because it makes a difference to the customers that we are serving.
Yeah, you raise an important point that the marginalized voices need to be a part of that decision-making process. Only then will solutions be truly inclusive. Sushant, coming back to you, looking at the entertainment industry, much has changed since the 90s, when trans people were mocked and caricaturized on screen. What has changed and what more needs to change to bring about better representation?
Oh my God. Of course, there's been a drastic change. In the way we have normalized, as you said, content, but that's mostly because of the OTT platforms, and that there have been so many more stories that have been told authentically. Mostly, I would say that there have been more instances of that happening in the regional cinemas than the mainstream Bollywood. There have been one or two instances where also, of course, there have been wonderful films that have been made. Now then the whole debate about, how this doesn't, the queer community doesn't feel represented by cisgendered people playing a transgender person also. Like, for example, if I'm playing your biopic, and I'm not a biological woman, but there will be so many other biological girls who are actors who will be able to play you more authentically and it would look realistic. So as a transgender person, I think if there is a transgender role that you've created, it shouldn't be an argument at all that it should be played by a transgender actor. Or otherwise, then if that's the thing that you want to keep it like an equal playing ground for everybody, then let transgender actors play women and men as well, if men and women can play transgender actors. Because like for a very long time, as you said, in the 90s, only essentially men were playing transgender characters, but they were the reason that people like me were still in the closet. We couldn't come openly because they had, how do I say this? They had made it look like we're some demons. And I just think that, yeah, don't let my shoulders fool you. I'm not a demon. I'm not the queen of demons. But, for example, when I sing, I just came back from Harvard University. I was one of the first transgender Indian artists to go and give a lecture there on the Indian conclave. And then, thank you. And then so when I sing, for example, should I sing for you a little bit? Okay. महबूब मेरे तेरी आँखों से मुझे पीने दे कुछ दर्द है मेरे सीने में मुझे मस्त माहौल में जीने दे. So art has the power, as Guneet said, to cross all these barriers that we have created. Nobody else has created these barriers. So when I sing in multiple octaves, now you don't need to understand exactly what I said. There might be people who don't understand Hindi in the audience. But the wow came, no? And did you see whether that's a man or a woman or a trans person? It doesn't matter, you had fun. And I just think that art has the power to do that, to change you, to move you, to think differently. And I just want people to think like this, that, you know, I could sing, you know, the other day I went to test a song for a film. One of my favorite directors, I was about to faint. One is the Gunito. I have worked with little bit with your production house for a show, which won a couple of awards here, not the Oscars, but today I held the Oscars. Now, Gunit, we need to go and get two more. Huh? And then, so, you know, but then when I worked with them, I was just like, when I saw their face, I was just like, oh my God. I said, exactly. But then they were like, but now, should we make you sing for the actor or the actress? I said, you know, I'll save you money. I'll sing for both. You know, so I think that it's a matter of perspective and things are changing. But I think that, you know, you need more people to be on the forefront of this change from within the community. So as she very rightly said, Harish is a very dear friend of mine at Axis. And I opened my account because of Harish. Because, you know, a lot of times they'll say that, you know, but, you know, oh, but this document is not changed. But now today, I must give this, also, I must take this moment, a little bit time, and give, you know, it's like the dichotomy of it, okay? So the Indian government has done a fantastic job by creating an online portal for transgender people, where if you identify as a transgender person, you have to just fill in the form, which no other country has, by the way. India is the first country to have this. Maybe because they've now understood that, you know, transgender people for us have always been part of our cultural fabric and our history. But on the other hand, you know, according to the latest budget, the gender budget, we only got 0.02% of the total fund, or the funding, which is about 5 to 6 crores of the total, but 0.02%. And the amount of transgender people in our country, which are out as transgender people, are at least 4 times that amount. So how do we, it's a question that I'd like to also find an answer to, but how do we account for these people? And it's most of the times they go unnoticed, you know, and this is also creating ghetto culture, and because they don't have jobs. So, and also it should not only be that they're depending on you or me or someone to help them. I think skill building is so important. So education and healthcare and, you know, and the fundamentals, to help them grow so that they don't have to ask us. And, you know, so when you see them and, you know, you put turn your window up, it's very easy for us. Just imagine how tough it is when they're able-bodied, able-minded, and, you know, even for them to even understand that they're not even considered human at that level. So I just think that we need to really open our minds, open our hearts, and, you know, really, really think about these things. And I'm so happy that, you know, you're chairing so many organizations that actually do these things and create policies which are very inclusive. I can vouch for that. Thank you. So.
Talking about positive change, Avni, you know, in the Rio Paralympics, India won 4 medals. Come to the Tokyo Paralympics, 4 years later, India won 19 medals. So obviously something's changed. What has changed on the ground, and what more can be done?
So I started shooting in 2015. And when I started shooting, I didn't know anything about para sports as such. And I just went there in my summer vacations, trying it out. And we didn't know anything about the classification, the category, because about 15% of the world population has some kind of disability. And there are so different categories of each one of them. And to find out in which category do I fit in was very difficult. We didn't have that much knowledge about the sports, how to sit and shoot, because usually able-bodied athletes, they stand and shoot, and I had to get my rifle customized. I had to get my wheelchair customized because in layman language we can say my wheelchair is like my legs, and even the thickness of the cushion matters a lot. So by trials and errors, we found out which wheelchair suits me, which rifle suits me. In the beginning, there was no wheelchair accessible shooting ranges as such. There was no ramps at all. In fact, my parents, they installed a ramp in the shooting range. There was no wheelchair accessible washrooms. When I went there, there were no parachuting specialized coaches as such. So they just, coach able-bodied athletes, and my coaches, they try to customize the coaching methods, and they learned how to teach a person who is on a wheelchair accordingly. But coming back to now, winning 19 medals, it has changed a lot. Obviously, the government has supported. Government is coming to the grassroots levels. We are seeing improvement in such, and now we are seeing that the infrastructure is also getting accessible and inclusive. But it is still not that level, because only the government can't do that much of this big population. A lot of private sectors, they should come to, and they should also get involved, and then only if we support the athletes at the grassroots level, then we'll see more results at the elite level. Because you can't just expect to give the sponsorships to someone who's already like a medalist, and then other people, the little kids, the young athletes, they don't get that support that much. So it also started changing. After winning 19 medals, I have seen a lot of change in the mindset of the people a lot, because now we see other kids, other athletes, and some of them even came up to me and said, you gave us inspiration, and because of you we are also trying in sports, and we are also going out, and we also want to represent our country at such levels. And that meant a lot to me. That felt like a real success at that moment when someone came up to me and said, because of you, we didn't want to give up. Because that is something that means a lot to me, being a person with disability. And now when I got this, platform to say and to inspire people, I feel that I want to use it as much as possible. And yeah, but if we'll get more support from the private sectors as well, because when we see a person on a wheelchair, or when we see a person, some of us don't even know if someone is disabled or not, because it comes in different styles and in different ways. And when we see a person on a wheelchair, for example, me, they will first look at my disability before looking what I am capable of, what I can do, what I can't do. And I want to change that opinion. I want people to be more informed than rather being opinionated about a disability, because disabled people also have their fair share of desires and skills and motivation, also loss, heartaches, and it differs. In the end, we are all human beings. So if we get more support of that, then we'll see, maybe we'll get more medals than 19 in the next Paralympic Games.
That's wonderful. So it is about talent and not so much about gender or disability or anything else. Just one very quick question, 30 seconds each. What should an inclusive leader look like?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
To me, an inclusive leader is not somebody who's getting all different parts of the community together because it's expected of them, but because they feel that's the fair and right thing to do in this world. We have a variety, we need to represent that variety, we have to make life easy for the variety. Women have really struggled to get to a place where they are recognized. It's taken decades, and I have come from a place where I would have been the only woman in any room wherever I went, and of course things have changed. I have been in situations where there were no women's washrooms. I have worked in those kind of situations. From there, we have moved a long way. I think we have lots more of walking to do for diversity.
Sushant and Avani, very quickly.
Well, I would think that all of us have the ability to be an inclusive leader. I just think we need to poke the right vein, as we say. And with these two wonderful ladies next to me, I would just like to say that this is itself the living and breathing example of inclusive leaders in their own fields. And I'm saying this because I have watched her on TV, and the amount of pride I had when she won the medal for the country. And not one, she won so many medals. Please put your hands together. I'm actually fangirling. You don't know how hard I'm breathing because I'm sitting. I love you, and you know, and it, you know, just to let you know that you don't not only inspire you know, your community of athletes or sports people, you inspire us. And so for that, thank you. Thank you so much. These are inclusive leaders, and y'all can also be inclusive leaders. It's very easy. Yeah, you just have to be, you know, you have to have an open mind, and as she said, not judge someone when they enter a room. You know, my first introduction to you is not, hi, I'm Rani and I'm transgender, you know. I'm so many more things, and trans just happens to be one of them. And so I think that when you see life through that lens, everything looks beautiful and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sushant, and I totally agree that all of us can be inclusive leaders. For me, inclusivity means that, you know, allowing each other and encouraging each other to be, you know, to be able to speak, to be able to hear and what they say, and, you know, they just go out, and there's no fear or judgment or any preconceived notion about anybody, and just be kind to each and every human being as such. And I feel that if you want to go out and spread some kindness, you should, and you should just have empathy and not sympathy for anyone.
On that note, thank you so much. Thank you, Avni. Thank you, Sushant. And
Forbes India Leadership Awards 2023.